Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hello, Pharaoh's Freedom family. We have an amazing guest for you today. It is Dr. Nicole Calloway Rankins, and she is the mom of 2 girls, a wife, and an OBGYN physician. And she also has a podcast, which you guys have got to listen to. She's a women's health advocate and a certified integrative health coach. But you know what? It's always best coming from the source. So Dr. Rankins, can you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Charmaine. This is really a pleasure, and I am honored to be here.
Awesome.
And let me say real quick, thank you for coming on to my podcast. That's one of the reasons why it's so great.
It was a lot of fun.
It was fun.
By the way, guys, you got to listen to that episode.
It was a lot of fun. All right. So a little bit about me. So I'm an OBGYN physician. I'm a hospitalist physician. And so what I do, I work primarily in the hospital on labor and delivery. 99% of what I do is deliver babies, and I absolutely love it. But that is not necessarily where I started out. So, I should also say I also have the podcast, All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast,
yes,
where I share information to help women with their pregnancy and birth. Really like comprehensive information, holistic information, evidence-based. And I do that by interviewing experts. I have women come on and share their birth stories, which is what you did. Mm-hmm. And I also talk about topics. So it's a way for me to kind of jump into the space and help provide a reliable source of information about pregnancy and birth. And then I also have an online childbirth education class called the Birth Preparation Course. And it's all online. You know, you can do it whenever. It's very comprehensive. It's like 8 hours of content. It's really focused on childbirth. Okay. And so I do that.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I cannot say this is how I thought I would end up, as a physician. And when I started medicine, I initially thought I was going to do research. So I did my residency training. I back it up. Even before that, I really thought that when I was in medical school, I really thought I was going to be a GYN oncologist.
Okay.
Yeah, I did, which is, I was like 100% sure I was going to be a GYN oncologist. They take care of women who have GYN cancers, ovarian, cervical, uterine. Then about my 3rd year in residency, decided that wasn't right for me. I knew that I didn't want to go into private practice, but I wasn't quite sure where to go, and came across this research fellowship opportunity. I was like, I'm interested in research. I could do research. So I plan to do research in patient care. So I did a research fellowship at UNC Chapel Hill. I did residency at Duke, went down the street to UNC.
Duke. I did residency there too, girl.
Oh, okay. How did I not know that? So did residency at Duke, then went down the street to UNC Chapel Hill to do my research fellowship, got an MPH, and then I set off to do research and patient care, and I failed at it spectacularly.
So you have to tell us a little bit more about that, because that sounds very intriguing.
Yeah.
Because I cannot imagine that you, one who is so brilliant and gifted, would fail at something. Tell us more about that.
It was a hard time. So I started off at one institution, and I had support and I had a little bit of funding, but I could just never really get going on research. And it turns out that it just was not the right place for me. It wasn't the best use of my talents. In order to do research, you have to focus really narrowly, usually on a very specific thing. And I found myself interested in a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And it just was not working for me. So I started at one institution, thought that it would get better if I went to a second institution that had a little bit more, it was a bigger place with a little more support. And turns out, nope, that wasn't the issue. And the support wasn't the issue. The issue was that research just wasn't right for me. Okay. So after 7 years of, of trying, I had this meeting with my department chair, and I knew it wasn't going to go well because I hadn't done the research. And I thought that, a lot of times in academics, if you don't do research, you just end up being clinical. So instead of a research position, you transition into a clinical position, and it kind of works out. But during this meeting, he told me that someone had recommended that I get fired.
Oh my.
And I was like, say who, say what? Like, what in the, I mean, it like threw me for like a complete loop in a number of ways. I mean, one, I was used to being like a high achieving person and getting things done. So, which most of us are in medicine. So to be told that somebody thought I should get fired, it was like, whoa, especially since I knew I was a good clinically. It wasn't like I had any issues clinically. So I would have been fine in a clinical position. And then, and I was like in tears in his office.
Of course.
And the other part that was really hurtful for me, and this is at least according to him, I can't, verify what, who, if the person said it, but he told me that the person who recommended that I get fired was actually a Black woman. And it was like, that just made me feel like, it's not that many of us here. Right. And for her to, say that, it just really threw me for a loop.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a tough time for me. And I found myself feeling like I can't stay at this place. I got to find a new job.
Right. Yeah.
But we were settled in our city. We live in Richmond, Virginia. And my husband was like, we're not moving again.
Oh, wow.
So, now he is complete. Don't get me. He is amazing. He's supportive. Falcon. His name's Falcon, like the bird.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He does have a cool name. Falcon was like, he's a wonderful husband, but he's like, look, we're kind of settled here. So you got to figure something out that works here, which was totally, it was fair. It wasn't unreasonable at all.
Yeah.
So the way life works, I was at my gynecologist appointment, my yearly checkup with my OBGYN around when all this happened. And she just asked me how I was doing. And I told her, and she was like, you know what? There's a position opening up that just opened up at the hospital for a hospitalist position. Oh,
awesome.
Yep. There you go. And the rest is history. So I took that job, fell in love with it. And then I still wanted some ways to connect with women in a more, one-on-one kind of personal way. So I explored this health coaching thing. So Duke has a health coaching training program, and one of the faculty members there who runs the program actually was an attending of mine. She's an OBGYN when I was a resident. Okay. So I talked to her and she talked about it. So I went through, became an integrative health coach. It's really great training, just a really holistic approach to medicine, one that we should all be taking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That we don't always do. But so I did that, and I thought, well, okay, I can do this health coaching on the side and kind of make that work. But that wasn't quite the right thing for me either. Sort of hung out my virtual shingle, so to speak. And I had one health coaching client. She was my client because she knew me as a physician. So it was just tough. The marketing piece was tough. And then it wasn't still exactly the right fit. So I was talking to I was on a podcast talking about health coaching, and she asked me to talk about delivering babies. And she's like, you know what? You light up when you talk about work, delivering babies. And I was like, you know what? I do. I love it. Like I really do. So I had to step back and say, how can I combine all this great information that I learned from being a health coach, a holistic approach and all that things with my work as an OBGYN, and I came up with starting a blog. I initially used to blog and this course, and then that blossomed and grew into the podcast and the course and social media, and that's where I am now.
Awesome. That is an awesome story. Oh my goodness. And to think that you were doing the thing you're supposed to do, which is go see your doctor and get your checkup.
Okay.
And it turned into like a transformative.
It really
moment.
did. Yes. It really, really did. Yes.
Wow.
And I can't, and I'm ashamed to say I'm not always the best about getting timely checkup.
You know what? It is, I think probably the only reason why I'm pretty regular about it is because I guess I was pregnant for so many years in a row, and then I just kind of got used to going to the GYN doctor. But I will say that, and I admit this, I was a year late in getting my first mammogram.
Okay.
I got at 41 instead of 40.
Yeah.
But I have been diligent in getting it every year since. So
there you go.
Yeah. It's, you know what? It's all good. It's as long as you try your best to do the health maintenance items, just to make sure. Because because we feel good doesn't mean that there's anything going on. You know, it's a kind of keep things in check.
Yeah.
No, but this is a great story. I mean, how the course was born, how your coaching business was born, and how the podcast was born. That's amazing. And then the other really neat connection that I'm picking up from what you're saying is, you know, you're on this podcast talking to somebody and you're coming away with a gem. Like you came away with like inspiration. You know, that person realized that you totally lit up when you talked about, talked about delivering, and that just sparked a beautiful cascade towards, you know, what you do now, which I think
absolutely
awesome.
did. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's what you just have to be open, I think, to things and signs. And, you know, I wouldn't say I'm a terribly religious person, but I'm certainly spiritual. And when you open yourself up to receive, then God or the universe or however you want to put it will answer your questions for you. Absolutely. It doesn't always come the way you think. But right.
Coming through your OBGYN and coming through another podcaster's words. There you go. Definitely not what you expect.
Yep, for sure.
But you hit the nail on the head when you say that, you know, it really depends on your perspective and what your mindset is. I mean, you have a mindset, you obviously we're a place of in a place of openness, like you mentioned, because she could have said that to you and you could have just been like, you know, she could have said, how are you doing? And you could have not told her what was really going on.
That's very
and then,
true.
You know, you would not have known about the position, you know? So it's, you know, as we go through life, it's almost like, we just have to be aware, to be open, to be ready for whatever the universe has to give us. Because sometimes it's a blessing and it's an abundant blessing, and you know you have to be ready for it. So
absolutely,
yeah, no, that's pretty terrific. Love hearing that story. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So I know that. So you mentioned several things in here that definitely could have fear associated with it. So you know we have to dig into the fear. It's all about facing fears and emerging victoriously. So,
right.
Yeah, you can choose where along that line you'd like to address the fears that you felt.
Yes. I would say the biggest fear, I would say a big fear for sure was stepping away from academics. Like that's what I thought that I was going to do 100%, like that. I would be a career academic person, and stepping into a community hospital and something that just really was unknown for me, that was hard. That was tears, that was prayer, that was talking to my husband, and just eventually just deciding that I had to let go and have some faith.
Wow.
Yeah, because well, I didn't have any other options. So it was like
when your back is against the wall, boy,
Yes.
amazing what you do.
Yes.
Amazing growth.
Okay. Yes. And I knew and even before that at my job, it was starting to affect at home. I was cranky at home. I just wasn't in a good place. So I knew that I had to do something different. So that was probably the biggest fear. And it ended up working out so spectacularly well for me. And for a number of reasons, just the environment I was in. I have a great group of night nurses who I work night shifts mostly.
Oh,
yeah, there you go.
In the house.
And the nurses were just wonderful. How they just welcomed me in, and because it's really just at night, it's usually just me and them.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's all about your team.
And I walked into a great team, so that really helped a lot. So that was definitely a fear for sure. And then another fear was just kind of stepping out of into this non-traditional role of being a physician and having an online course and being on social media and having a podcast. I mean, maybe it's not quite as so much non-traditional now. You see more and more folks doing it, but for sure, it just felt like from somebody who was coming from a very straight-laced academic background to switch all the way to being online and social media. That was like, can I really do this? And how it would be perceived.
And so did you, so you mentioned that the things that you relied on to overcome the fear of, doing something that was outside the box, of, going into a space that you were not comfortable in. What were, besides thinking, changing your mindset and just praying about it, meditating about it, is there anything practical that you ended up doing or that you would suggest for someone who is in a similar situation that would help them through it?
Yeah, I know that this is going to sound like maybe a little bit flippant, but you just have to do it. There's you just have to jump.
Okay.
Because you can get caught up in your head about all of the possibilities that can happen and all of the things that might be, and it can consume you. And I find that once you just do it, even if it's just a small step of that first social media post, you realize that, you know what, it's not that bad. And then you do a little bit more, and then you do a little bit more. So for me, it helped to just kind of make a decision. I would give myself deadlines, and I would say, okay, in 2 days, you got to make a decision about when you're going to do your first, post or your social media schedule, or in this number of days, you got to make a decision about what platform you're going to use for your course. So really setting deadlines or just saying, you just got to do it and keep putting one foot in front of the other.
I think that is fabulous advice. Very practical. I don't think I was flipping. No, I mean, because you're basically saying yes, close your eyes and do it and jump, take that leap of faith. But you gave yourself structure. You basically said, hey, I have a big goal. And in order to make that big goal more attainable, more feasible in my mind, I'm going to make these little goals.
Exactly.
In 2 days, I'm going to have that post out. I'm going to make a decision about this thing. And it's just those little things that help to build your confidence and help you to keep moving forward. So
you got it.
No, I think that was great advice.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then another thing, I can't remember what, I listen to so many podcasts. I was listening to a podcast and the person was talking about the importance of looking back and on some of the things that you've accomplished to help you as you move forward. So just kind of making a quick list. And when I looked back and I was like, you know what? I created a website. I did a course. I made a podcast. I was blogging for a little bit. I have done some things, you know, and feeling good and comfortable about that. And that can help you move forward too. So even if it's not related to what you're trying to do, there have been times when you've had successes in your life. So just look back and know that you can do these things. You've done things before and you can do more things going forward.
Celebrate those successes, man.
Yes.
They make all the difference.
Yes, it does.
Wow. Yeah. As you have me thinking too, because I was going back to thinking about my very first social media post. And this is a while back because I am like ridiculous when it comes to social media. I'm like all over the place. But yeah, no, it was definitely, it took a minute to tear off that Band-Aid. And so,
Yep.
But yeah, it just gets easier as you do it more.
It does. It does for sure.
Awesome. So do you feel like, so now, things are rolling, you're on a great trajectory. Now, are there any current fears that you're facing?
Yeah, I think a big fear is that, and I don't know if this is a fear or discomfort. I am realizing in OBGYN, the more that I listen to women's stories, that we have some work to do in our specialty about the way we care for women during pregnancy and birth.
Okay.
And
please elaborate.
Yeah, women are not, a lot of women are not having great experiences in the hospital. They're not being respected. It's not like a collaborative thing. They're just, a lot of women just aren't happy. Don't get me wrong. There are plenty of OBGYNs who provide great experiences, but there's times when women get like episiotomies without being told ahead of time, or
I see. Okay.
Yeah, or their membranes are getting stripped without being told. That's an uncomfortable procedure.
Right.
Or breaking water, starting Pitocin, or not good discussions about things. And that's why you see more and more women turning to things like home birth, or there's a lot, especially in the Black community, where we have racial and ethnic disparities and all kinds of issues in healthcare in general. People
are job birth, though.
People turning more to midwives because they're feeling like they're not getting the experience they deserve from physicians. So trying to figure out how I have a good handle on how I'm providing women great information, but I really want to help try and be a change from within my specialty and how to do that. And that can be difficult. When you're a physician and you call out other physicians, it can get a little,
dicey.
Yes.
Oh man. Oh yeah. I never know exactly how to tell you the best way to do that, because I don't know if there's a best way. I almost feel like you have to have almost like character witnesses. I don't know how else to describe this, but like literally have the stories of the women like recorded, or, in some kind of venue where that feedback is given
right
that way. And it doesn't have to be like it can be anonymous. It could be, it doesn't have to be a venue where people are actually named, like, yeah, Dr. So-and-so, blah, blah, blah. Right. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. But it's just, if you have enough of those character witnesses, it speaks to a problem, right? Yeah. And then once that's been established, then you can come up with the action plan and the way forward. Because just like, so I talk a lot about burnout because I went through it and everything. And
yeah. What was your experience in like bringing that to your community?
Oh, so it was interesting because like they were kind of shocked. Like when because I got up at one of the leadership meetings one day and I was like, look, I've been burned out. I've been there, like, and I could tell them, and they all were looking at me like, doe-eyed and like, whoa, what? Where'd this come from? And so, I think it was more and more people just coming and saying, like, just flat out, look, here's a problem. Here's a problem. And yes, it may not be at the point right now where it is affecting the work because, to be honest with you, like burnout, it can be very harmful. But the person that it hurts the most is really the person that's the healer, right? I mean, it's a very rare situation where you actually have what's going on with that person actually relaying to them, translating to them not doing a good job, because it's almost like we do medicine. We could do medicine in our sleep. And I don't want to make it sound like that, but it's something that we've been doing for so long that it almost has some automaticity to it. Like at baseline, I mean, there's a lot of thought that goes into figuring out what the problem is, given the circumstance and the scenario that you're presented with. But in general, you could do your job, right? And you could do it well because you've been trained to and practice and all that.
Yep.
But it's the emotional and psychological damage that happens to the healer that people just don't realize, and it's like, so they had no clue. And it wasn't until I actually came out and like basically shouted from the rooftops that they were just kind of like shocked. And then they were like, oh, this is a problem. Like, this happy young attending is now saying that she's burned out, like, how did this happen? And, and so I just keep telling my story because I want people to feel like they have a voice, and that, this is not something that is going to be talked about too much because it's not enough, because we're still losing physicians to suicide because they are so burned out and they get so isolated and they get so depressed and they'll feel like they're alone. And there's just really no reason for that. So, so it was basically me just opening my big mouth a lot. And then it didn't hurt that there was a prominent physician within our organization, within the hospital. So I'm a contractor, so I work for a group that's contracted to the hospital, but we've integrated ourselves into the hospital very nicely. So our current chief of staff is from our group. So that is very, very awesome. I'm super proud of him. But so anyway, there was a surgeon within the hospital system. She went through it big time. And, she also opened her mouth and spoke out about it. And then it turns out that she was no longer able to practice for some other reasons, and basically she became like the wellness champion at our spot. And it has allowed for some major changes to occur in the organization. And then within our group, we had, we had people who were kind of working on wellness, and we had one physician who has been really pushing towards wellness from the helping the physician to be a better I don't like to use the word provider, but a better, have better interactions and better communication with patients, even when you feel like there's a time crunch, like in the emergency department. Right. And so most of our work has been with interpersonal communication, and in a way that has a lot to do with wellness, and that can have a lot to do with you feeling burned out as well. So I say she's a wellness champion, even though her angle has been through communication. And so it was kind of like multiple different things happening at once that allowed for change to occur. Okay. So I think, I think the biggest thing is the starting to spark is going to be really having the patients' voices be heard, because I feel like that's really when
change happens.
Yeah, right.
Listen, yeah.
Right. Because I feel like I'm like, look, guys, this is not working. Like, we can't have this be this process issue. This doesn't work. We can't have people boarding in the emergency department. You can't have it be that, the beds aren't getting clean because there's some environmental services staffing. I'm like, hire some more people. Have somebody on call. I mean, it's a lot less of a barrier to like get more bodies in to do the work so that we can get the patients through. I don't know. But they don't listen to me. I tell the patients all the time, I'm like, look, ain't nobody listen to me. But I tell you what, if you say something, if you're like, I heard my bed was assigned and I waited 6 hours to get to my bed, I think if they get more and more of that, they'll start listening. That's just my opinion.
No, it's true. And if you talk about things even like publicly on a Facebook page for the hospital or something like that, gets a lot of attention as well. I think it's a little bit hard though in OBGYN. There's certainly this belief that women should just be happy that they're healthy and they have a healthy baby. Like there's no like permission, like if women are seen as being, I don't know, almost needy because they have some thoughts about how the experience goes. And so people think that because, they have birth wishes or a birth plan, that somehow they don't want to do that at the expense of having a healthy baby and for themselves to be healthy. I have never met a woman who doesn't want to be healthy and who doesn't want her baby to be healthy.
Right.
Period. Like that's what everybody wants.
Right.
Okay. So just because a woman is saying that she wants to have a nice experience, that she wants the room to be like a nice environment, that doesn't mean that she doesn't want a healthy mom, want everybody to be healthy. For some reason, there's a little bit of a pushback if women ask for anything other than healthy, then they're somehow wrong.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking about my little birth plan. I wonder if they were like in the back snickering about what I said.
They might have been. I'm ashamed to say I was one of those
crazy
physicians.
doctor coming in here talking about she don't want any pain medication.
Yeah, I mean, I used to roll my eyes at birth plans. It was wrong because we have to, OBGYN as a specialty is founded on having control over what happens in women's bodies. All the way back to Sims, who's like the father of gynecology. I say this a lot, and he did horrific experiments.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And that was okay at the time. And then back in like the early 20s, 30s, 40s, maybe even 50s, women used to just get knocked out unconscious to have babies. They didn't really have a choice.
Wow, chloroform. Here you go.
Yeah, they got the twilight sleep and they were strapped to a bed, and because we thought we knew what was better for them than they knew for themselves, and they weren't involved in the process. So the foundation of OBGYN is control over women, and we're getting away from that, but I think we still have a little bit of ways to go.
Wow. That's a huge Titanic to turn around.
Huge. Yes. Like. And like I said, it's not, we're making progress, but we still have a ways to go. Like even a small thing, I had a revelation maybe like maybe it was in the last year or so, how I wasn't like asking women before I check their cervix, like, is it okay if I check your cervix?
Right.
Because I'm just so used to, I'm going to come in, I'm going to check my cervix, but you know what? I should stop before I stick my fingers in somebody's vagina.
Right.
And explicitly ask, is this okay? And it's not that I was mean or anything about it, but you just sort of get trained that you come in and you do what you got to do, and not really centering that woman in the experience and how important that is for her. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was one of those people who was like, don't check my cervix.
I love that part.
I was like, I am not violated, not delivering on the day when baby's coming, then you can check it.
Right. And unfortunately, not all women are as comfortable being that assertive.
Yeah. I get that for sure.
Yeah. So anyway.
For sure. It's all good. Awesome. So it looks like you have a huge change movement to get going.
I got
within
dreams
your ranks. Within your ranks. Yeah. No, I think it can happen. It can definitely happen. There's no doubt about it. Wow. All right. Well, I'm going to be keeping my eye out and following that progress.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So this has been such an amazing discussion. I feel like the listeners are going to have so many nuggets to take away from our talk. But now we're at the point where we kind of round it up and we do our fill in the blank. And we have 3 sentences for you to fill in the blank on. First one is, to me, fearless freedom means.
Yeah. So for me, fearless freedom means really owning my freedom to just be my authentic self, just be myself and do so unapologetically. You really, as you go through your life, you don't always know exactly where you're going to end up.
Mm-hmm.
The path sometimes you can see the big picture. Like right now, I can see the big picture. But when I was sitting in that office crying with at that chairman meeting, I couldn't see anything.
True.
So to me, fearless freedom means that I can just be myself, do so unapologetically, know that I'm not always going to know the answers. It's okay to change. And just being comfortable doing that.
Awesome. Okay. And then if I am fearless, I will.
I have this, I don't know if it's because I'm like turning 45 or in my 40s, but I really being comfortable being in my skin and just being who I am. But being fearless means that's owning that. And that's really the only way for me to live my best life. I can't worry about what other people think or believe, or, everyone isn't necessarily going to like me, and that's okay. But I know that I am a good, kind person. And although I'm not perfect, just being my authentic self, being fearless and confident in that. That's the only way for me to really, really live my absolute best life.
Preach.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say one more, and if I could add one more, I would have to say one more thing. Yeah, about being fearless. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yes.
And to ask for help from different types of people. I often see in our communities in African American people, even in medicine, even in general, that we're sometimes not as comfortable asking people who don't look like us for help. You tend to want to find help from people who look like you, and that's totally natural. But in our space, there may not be a lot of people.
Right.
So don't be afraid to ask someone if they have something that you think can help you. Just ask. They may say no. That's okay. But I remember at one point, one of my mentors was like an older white guy because he had the information I needed, and he was great about it. So don't be afraid to ask for help, and be okay with asking different people for types of help, different types of people for help.
No, that's a good nugget because, I don't know why we tend to feel like we have to be kind of, it's almost like you're being like a little parochial, you're like staying in your own little space,
right?
And not having an open mind and stretching out and appreciating the treasures that are around you.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. That stretching out is important, and it's fun, and you get to meet lots of different people.
Oh yeah.
It's hard for me sometimes because I'm naturally an introvert, but I try to push myself to do it. Yeah.
And I'm sure you're probably getting to meet a lot of different people through the podcast too.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. And then the last one is my battle cry is.
Yes. My battle cry is you got this. Like I have that on my favorite. I'm a coffee drinker. I drink coffee every day. So my coffee mug says, you got this. I have it like on the screensaver for a couple of my, we all got 10,000 devices. So
of course.
It's a screensaver for me, but just that reminder at me that you got this. Like, I got this. I can do this. I'm ready. Yeah, I got this.
Nice. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. It has been such a great and stimulating conversation. Lots to think about as a result, Yeah,
and I thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. A lot of fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today on this journey. Fear is all around us. It strives to stop us from achieving our greatness. We have the tools to be overcomers. By sharing our stories, supporting each other, and doing self-reflection, we can do this. If you found value in this conversation today, please be sure to subscribe to and share this podcast with your friends. By going to your favorite podcast platform, leaving a review and a 5-star rating, you will help to get the word out about it. And that is much appreciated. Thanks again for spending time with us. I appreciate your time and your attention. It is my hope that you will punch fear in the face today and that you will be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.